Before we get into this week's episode, we want to tell you about the people that make this show possible. Like our friends over at SeatGeek.com this summer, this fall, the promo code is Goz, G-O-Z. Promo code Goz, G-O-Z. With your ticket purchase over $50, the first time you do it, $20 off. Promo code G-O-Z at SeatGeek.com. If you're going to the new Bruce Springsteen concert that was just announced in Albany, if you're heading to the Albany Empire game, whatever it might be, Syracuse football, games and more this upcoming fall and summer. If you're a sports fan, you love concerts, you love movies, whatever it might be. Movies? Maybe not so much movies, but sports, concerts, games, and more. SeatGeek.com is your place. SeatGeek.com. Use the promo code Goz, G-O-Z. $20 off your first purchase. $20 off. Promo code Goz, G-O-Z. This summer, SeatGeek.com. If you're looking to trade in your vehicle this summer, the spot to do it is at Mohawk Honda, Glenville, New York, proud sponsors of Godzilla Media and of this show. If you're looking for a new vehicle, whoever it might be, maybe for yourself, maybe for a family member or a friend, tell them about Mohawk Honda. Tell them about how you heard it on this show and they are buying your vehicle. And not just buying your vehicle, quite possibly buying the vehicle for more than you originally paid for it. They want to do it this summer. It's a weird time right now with the supply chain still all over the place that you can get that cost, money in your pocket, in a new ride. Mohawk Honda wants to help you do it. I know from experience. 2022 Pilot EXL, driving it around the capital region. I can afford it. I love the vehicle. It's great for my family and more. You want to have those bragging rights when you've got a new vehicle, and you can do it right now. Mohawk Honda is the spot for you in Glenville, New York. Say what's up to Cam McKenna, Brian McKenna, Lindsey Harrington, Greg Johnson, and more. Mohawk Honda, Glenville, New York. That's the spot to stop into. If you're looking for a new vehicle, stop in Mohawk Honda, where they always go out of their way to please you. And our friends over at Johnstone Supply in Troy. You're looking to stay cool all summer long. The spot for you to get that new AC unit is Johnstone Supply in Troy. Check them out on 6th Avenue in Troy, or give them a call today at 518-272-5922. Shout out to our guy George and Kev and Tom and James and everybody over at Johnstone Supply in Troy, helping you stay cool this summer. Get that new AC unit. Maybe you just busted this July. Maybe you're just looking to make that change. And if you're working on those great summer projects, the best spot to get those tools with a competitive price in store, 6th Avenue, Johnstone Supply in Troy. We love Johnstone Supply in Troy, helping us since day one here on Godzilla Media. Check them out on social media as well. Facebook, Johnstone Supply NY. Looking forward to beating some Johnstone Supply. Tom's going to be representing the fantasy football team this year. Get ready for him coming back as well. Tools, Johnstone Supply in Troy, and the new AC unit, the ductless splits, Fujitsu, and more. They're going to help you out with it. One more time for the number. Save it. Share it with a friend. 518-272-5922. Now, on to this week's episode of Goz On The Go. Kumar Rocker. I'm going to go Kumar until people start angrily emailing me saying you're saying it wrong. Kumar Rocker, drafted 3rd overall by the Texas Rangers. A surprise. Every mock draft, and take those for whatever they mean, especially in Major League Baseball, how we're finding out about how you spend money. It's a lot different than the NBA and the NFL. Goes 3rd. Look, everything we've seen, Capital Region sports fans, I'm talking to you specifically here, from the Tri-City Valley Cat former pitchers, proven to be one of the best, most interesting prospects in Major League Baseball. Can we go history? Why not? Look, there's a few prospects truly that you look back at in baseball and say, okay, this guy's going to be a star. There's something different. There's something interesting about him. I think all the way back to the days of Buster Posey for the Florida State Seminoles, who was just smashing home runs, and thought, can this guy really hit this many home runs in a row? If you're an older sports fan, you go back to the days of Robin Ventura and his hit streak in college. I mean, it's rare to find these prospects. Steven Strasburg for San Diego State stood out in all the hype around him, the number 1 overall pick, eventually a World Series champion. The double contracts from Scott Boras, Rocker's agent as well. Bryce Harper's a little different because Bryce Harper, I want to say, was a high school product, but really he dropped out of high school early and then got drafted. But Kumar Rocker, from his freshman year, he struck out 19, throwing no-hitters in big games for Vanderbilt. It seemed like a no doubt, absolutely, this guy's going to be a number 1 pick in Major League Baseball's draft one day. Not the number 1 pick, but the number 3 pick. And Capital Region, stand up for a minute, right? Because when it comes to baseball in the 518, it is now in the conversation. It's not just the best area in New York. I mean, that's a done conversation, but Can't we start stacking up that city and specifically against some of the trademark cities when it comes to baseball prospects? Look, Florida, Texas, California, I get it. Like the wide-ranging statement of there is far more talented players in southern states where they can play baseball 365, I get that. And somebody even argue, guys, Rocker's a Tennessee kid. Rocker's not an Albany kid, so let's back off a little bit. But let's give the love where it's due. He decided to come to Albany thinking the prospect scouts could be there to improve his stock, and that's what happened. Now, whether it's the player Kennedy from Troy High School now or the kid from Maple Hill who's going to go to West Virginia, Van Campen, right? Mike Kennedy from Troy, Luke Gold from Boston College. I just listed off 4 players with a 5-1-8 tie who are going to get drafted in a shortened Major League Baseball draft. How's the Capital Region been able to do this? Is it because of guys in the past like Jeff Hoffman in 2014, first-round pick? Garrett Whitley in 2015, first-round pick. Ian Anderson in 2016, first-round pick. Albany continues to pump out products. I wish I could tell you that it was something in the water out here. Maybe there's better all-star teams. If there's a reason that someone wants to claim credit where credit's due for pumping out these prospects, do it. Stand up. Stick out your chest and pump it a little bit and say, I'm the reason why this thing is happening. But let's tip the cap a little bit and shout out when it deserves it. Now, what can Rocker be in the future? It's so hard to figure out the baseball prospects. Even Carl Ravitch opened up the ESPN Sunday Night Major League Baseball draft coverage saying this is a crapshoot. It's way harder to figure this out. Listen to some names on the board with graphics for different franchises of names you may or may not have ever heard of before. Everything tells me Rocker is going to be amazing. With the hype, with the slider, with an organization in Texas that's looking for a star now, with the AL West being so competitive with the Astros and the hot Seattle Mariners. Yeah, Kumar Rocker can be a star. And we're glad we got to see him here in upstate New York. I know the Mets graphic is up right now. Pete Alonso, I still want him to be the headline of the Home Run Derby from this past Monday because history was almost made by Pete Alonso. Just battled back and forth in the Home Run Derby. Got beat by better hitters on Monday night. Juan Soto wins it. So Pete Alonso, let's again, tip of the cap, golf clap, whatever we want to do for the back-to-back Home Run Derby championships. Try to become the first Major League Baseball player in the modern era to win 3 in a row. Only Ken Griffey Jr. has won 3. He's one of many who's won 2 now. But Pete Alonso, in this new era, this new spot, has been one of the great reasons why the Home Run Derby has been more exciting than ever before. Now let's go to that final, right? Juan Soto versus Julio Rodriguez. And if you want, you can raise your hand. I'm not going to judge you. Hopefully you're not driving. If you didn't know who Julio Rodriguez was before Monday night. Now, we all know who Juan Soto is. The Nationals have continued to pump out prospects, whether it's Steven Strasburg, Bryce Harper, then Juan Soto, the young stud who just, a few days ago said no to a $440 million contract for the next 15 years to play with Washington. Yeah, he goes out. He ends up being the star of the night. Or was he? Like, I know Juan Soto wins the competition, and Juan Soto, you just heard those stats, and Washington stinks. They're terrible right now. Who is not terrible is the Seattle Mariners. That win streak, 13, 14 games, piling it on. My pal Brady Farkas is probably going nuts, finally seeing an M's team that can win. That's the difference. Guys like Julio Rodriguez. That's been the fun part about sports that feels like it's changed from the mid-90s and the late 80s to what it is in 2022. That basketball, especially the NBA, I felt like it had this. Like every NBA team had a star. Every NFL team, it felt like in that era, had a star. Baseball feels like it's getting back to that. Now, when you think about the Mariners, I think about those mid-Mariner teams, and maybe it's because I just watched the Jeter doc of Randy Johnson, Alex Rodriguez, Edgar Martinez, Joey Cora. Shout out to Ken Griffey Jr. Baseball, right? Those teams are great. And now Julio Rodriguez, a young star, 21 years old, rocking the 44, going out there and just swinging, knocking his shoes off. I was excited by him. Like, can't we put Julio Rodriguez after one night in the same conversation as the Fernando Tatis Jr., Vlad Guerrero, all these other young studs who want to show off their personalities in the field? Of course, Manny Machado, Bryce Harper, all those guys. So that's what Monday night was more about. Even though Pete Alonso gets the credit here, and we're tipping the cap to him, and he's been an amazing part of the home run derby, what it's always been about. And maybe next summer I'll do the same take, and the summer after that I'll do that same take, that when you have the stage to yourself, when you've got the national spotlight, when all sports fans, not just baseball fans, but sports fans, because of the pause in the action here in the midsummer, are focused on you, what are you going to do with that opportunity? How are you going to take advantage of that? How will people know more about you than ever before? We've seen athletes in the past like Josh Hamilton, Bobby Abreu, Miguel Tejada, some of the great home run performances of maybe lesser known names. Julio Rodriguez just put his name in that spot. Is he Garrett Anderson? Is he Bryce Harper? Is he Aaron Judge? What is he going to be for the future? We'll find out. But I was entertained. And by the way, did anyone else think Albert Pujols was going to win? Did we think the fix was in? Was it like that All-Star game in Seattle where there was just a meatball thrown over the plate to my guy, Cal Ripken? Soto still beat him. At one point, I did think the fix was in. Home run derby was still awesome to watch, but it was about Julio Rodriguez as maybe potentially one of the names to never forget about this upcoming playoff season. Mid-July, and Syracuse football fans have something to be excited about? Yeah, it's the preseason accolades that this player is getting. Let's do it one more time just to annoy you, and I promise I won't do it again. Let's tip the cap to Sean Tucker, the running back for the Orange. You've heard a lot of takes here on Goz On The Go, especially this past fall, about the potential unretiring of 44 for Tucker until Syracuse actually gets to a bowl game or competes for the ACC, or Tucker has that type of season and that discussion is one of the best players in the country. I didn't want anything to do with the unretiring of 44. Ooh, that last part. Being in the discussion as one of the best players in the country. Sean Tucker, our guy Bill Bender over the Sporting News, listed Sean Tucker as the second-team All-American running back. The Maxwell Award, the award given to the best player in the country, just put Sean Tucker on the watch list for the best player in the country. Now, look, there's no denying how good the stats were last season for Sean Tucker, and for Syracuse football fans, you know you got to watch one of the best running backs in the ACC. Now I guess I have to add in the country. How far can Syracuse football go this season? We'll get to that preview next month when we talk about it, preview the team, and go through camp and all that other stuff. But even as somebody who is a Syracuse football fan to the core, in, I won't say hate, because that's not the right term, or a hater. That's not even it either. I was a more realistic, non-biased take on Sean Tucker, that if he's going to get that true recognition and acknowledgement across the country, Syracuse football has to be better. That's a pretty easy, borderline soft take. But maybe what's just happened over the course of the last 2 weeks shows how good this guy is. I know Robinson from Texas is going to get the headlines because it's Texas football, and the people, is Texas back? It feels so good to say that. But what Sean Tucker's doing right now, before he's even taken the field again in 2022, is remarkable in its own right. Syracuse football fans may not have had a player like this in how long? Chandler Jones? Look, I loved Andre Sisco. I loved my guy Trill Williams. Those guys are fantastic players and high draft picks. But there's something different about Andre Sisco, Trill Williams, and others in comparison to Sean Tucker. I know he's a freshman, all accolades and everything else that Sisco got as an All-American. Safety's different than a running back. It's simple and easy as that. It's not taking away anything for those guys in the secondary and quarterbacks. Running back, quarterback, wide receiver. When you are recognized in the preseason, when people mention those positions when it comes to football, they're more attention-grabbing. It can change a program. Syracuse football has some new coordinators in it and everything else, and maybe they'll be start to think about shying away from Sean Tucker. Please no. I know how often Virginia threw the ball last season, and that Armstrong, their quarterback, was one of the top-ranking passers in the country. And Armstrong, if he'd stayed healthy for that college game day game, we would have talked about him potentially as one of the best All-American, Heisman Trophy contending. That didn't happen. Give Sean Tucker the football. A lot. Over and over and over again. If those Syracuse football games are now under 3 hours and they can get to 6-6, 7-5, 8-4, have some games, or maybe a shock somebody steal the national headline, we can talk more and more about Sean Tucker. But that is a huge deal. That a program that's struggling, that a program is not even considered in contention to win an ACC title, is now putting a running back on the Maxwell Award list, and a second-team All-American. Syracuse football fans, if you've been looking forward to find something to root for, find something to get excited about, it's how far Sean Tucker can take this team. I'm looking forward to previewing the Orange later this summer. Just one win away for the Albany Empire to clinch the top seed in the NAL 2022 playoffs. A hard-fought victory over Orlando. Orlando just didn't have enough in that second half. We'll get back to that point in a second. Carolina loses. Columbus wins. They've locked the playoff spot. So we know the playoff teams: Carolina, Columbus, Jacksonville, Albany. Now, to have the NAL playoffs again go through the Capital Region is a huge deal because you know the theme of the summer when it comes to Empire football. The fan base has been spoiled. They have, and that's a good thing to have as a sports fan. When your team is winning and you get good prospects, when you have the best product to put out on the field, why wouldn't fans respond to that? And that spoiled term I use means this. 2018, the championship game was scheduled to be held in Albany, but the Empire get upset in that semifinal aggregate round. So although it doesn't have the Arena Bowl that season, Albany was set to have it happen. 2019, guess what? Arena Bowl, Albany. 2021, NAL Championship, Albany. And if Albany can win their next two home games, we're talking about the regular season finale and that semifinal round on the 30th, August 13th, the NAL Championship will be played inside MVP Arena. Let's go back to that storyline one more time, and I'm sure we'll hit it a few more times as we preview the games with this win, and you're the top seed, so much more motivation for the Empire. We all want Carolina, right? Like, we want the storyline of Tommy Grady, Malachi Jones, Joe Hills, Maurice Leggett. Leggett not so much because he's played on different franchises, but those three in particular. Tommy Grady, Malachi Jones, Joe Hills, former Albany Empire players now playing for the Carolina Cobras. Didn't play in that Columbus matchup, so they might just be geared up for a final regular season week in the semifinal run. To see all of that come back, and not just come back, but have a week of hype, to hype it up across the Capital Region, to hype it up and have the interviews and what does it mean at a championship. It is a great thing for NAL football. It is fantastic for the league to have these players come back, at least for that hype bump, for ticket sales and media coverage and more. That's exactly what the Empire want. Now, when you talk about bragging rights and what it means for the franchise, it isn't only a few players that can decide a difference in a game. Those questions will be answered when they actually take the field. It's hard for me to believe, and I'll have to see it with my own two eyes, and I might get to from the broadcast booth, that if you guys can walk off the street, play two games, and win a championship. That's hard for me to believe. I know Columbus has gotten a lot better since Mason Espinosa's quarterbacked the team, but we will wait and see. I know I've seen the Albany Empire show off in that second half, what we talked about earlier with this Empire point, that Coach Manas deserves credit for how he's built this roster, because the biggest difference in Ironman football that I've noticed in teams is that teams run out of gas in the second half against Albany. It happened against Jacksonville. It happened against Orlando. It happened against Columbus. They just do not have the horses that Albany does. Now, whether that's a strategy Coach Manas has used about having some more weapons on the outside, whether it's just flat-out Darius Prince, Dwayne Hollis, and the defensive backs being better than those guys, more conditioned, I would lean towards a little combination of both, but it's completely different teams. Orlando couldn't move the football in the second half because they were so gassed. That'll be the difference for the NAL playoffs. Come out, support the Empire, watch those games and everything else, but that is what I've noticed. The Albany Empire, Saturday night against the San Antonio Gunslingers, winning, you're the top seed. Great things on the way for the Empire, and even better things, potentially, with the NAL Championship coming back to the 518. I told you last week that this Goz On The Go could have an earlier release date just because of the schedules of the summer and how things are happening. This is one of the slower times. I mentioned that because AEW fans going to get mad at me because you see the WWE graphic up on our visual side. I don't know what's going to happen in the barbed wire death match between Chris Jericho and Eddie Kingston. If that ends up being a classic, one of the matches of the year and the most entertaining thing in it, I'll take the lump. You can criticize me on social media. I'll talk about it next week. If you want some takes on that match, check out White Heat. White Heat, right into Brian Katie, right into JJ. Those guys are good to you. I'm more focused in on this news involving the WWE. Not so much the matches and the cards and Sasha Banks. Like, we've covered a lot of that stuff before. The rumor that was floating around that the WWE could be moving from TVPG to TV 14. So from the days of the Attitude Era, that might be inching closer and closer back to that product. Here's this battle between the Attitude Era and the PG era and the social media era. I always call that social media era post CM Punk. I'll do this one more time so people hear it. So we've done it on the air before on Levac and Goz. I'm sure I did it with Brian Katie on White Heat. We so fondly look back as professional wrestling fans and fight fans at the Attitude Era of the WWE, but we always alter history. We just assume that everything during the Attitude Era was great because that's what it's been told back to us through the WWE for documentaries and podcasts. A lot of it was terrible. Like some of these things that aired during the Attitude Era would have got eviscerated by social media. But now we are so fondly looking back at Austin and The Rock and Kane and Undertaker and and DX because that was the good stuff. You don't remember the bad stuff as much, but that's the truth of it. So whether the WWE is going to move to TV PG to TV 14, so what would the difference mean? Like you as an adult who probably listen to this, be like, ooh, they swore. Okay. Ooh, there's blood. Ooh. Like that product is already out there. AEW does all that stuff. I just came off a barbed wire death match I was just talking about. Now I'm talking about the WWE changing their rating numbers. If you want that, go find it. If you have a kid, if you have somebody younger, go watch that. Look, there's still been some fantastic matches and storylines in this era. So I don't know how much of the product would actually change with that number being changed. Would I like the product more? Maybe. Maybe I'm in the minority on this. Maybe I'm a little too biased because I'm watching Macho Man Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan cuts and my 2-year-old loves it. But for some fans, are they going to jump over? Is the expansion of streaming services like Netflix and Hulu and Amazon and everything else with this shock jock stuff not there anymore? You can go on these platforms. If you want to hear somebody drop an F-bomb or show some skin, you can do it. And it's more easily accessible than ever in the history of humankind. So this whole switch from TV 14, by the way, not happening. I guess I should have covered that point, that it was rumored and then it got shut down. I'm not positive it's going to have the impact that the people on social media want it to truly have. We got more sports talk on the way here on Goz On The Go, but before we do that, we want to hope that you can support the friends that make this show possible, like Jared Lozier over at Northeastern Insurance. If you're looking to save cash for your upcoming summer vacation, the fall's just around the corner. Maybe you're getting ready for that big NFL game, that college football game. You want to save some cash? The number for Jared Lozier, I like saying it like that, Jared Lozier, 518-956-3753. 518-956-3753. Let's put that accent on again. Jared Lozier. Jaredl at nemail.com. So many people looking for that financial advice, looking to save money. It's simple and easy. You listen to the podcast, be like, all right, let's just text this Jared Lozier guy and see if I can save some cash. 518-956-3753. Can I just get a quote? And if he doesn't beat it, then okay. But maybe he's probably going to. Yeah, he is going to. Jaredl at nemail.com. Save some cash for yourself this summer by working with our pal. We loved hanging out with him at the Hideaway. Jared Lozier, Northeastern Insurance. And if you're looking to buy that engagement ring, that wedding band, that great piece of jewelry for her, or to celebrate your anniversary, the spot for you is Lily and David Fine Jewelers, located at the Shoppes of Wilton. Route 50. Stop in, say hello to Alyssa, say hello to David. Those guys, a family-owned and operated business. I know from experience. That's where I bought my engagement ring, my wedding band. And this summer, I'm heading back in, man. I got to see what the selection looks like. I got to tell my soon-to-be brother-in-law, Rob, to stop in. Make sure he's taking care of my sister, hooking her up with some great stuff as well. Always the best selection you can find in the Capital Region, across Upstate New York as well. You're making that great purchase. Make sure you can do it with someone you can trust, someone who's done it before, because for years to come, people are going to remember it. They're going to remember the proposal, and hopefully if your ring's good enough, they'll remember that even more. They will. Trust me. I know. Lily and David Fine Jewelers, family-owned and operated business. Shout out to Alyssa. Shout out to David. We stop in. Tell me you heard about it from right here UAlbany Athletics have announced a $12 million renovation project involving Syracuse Arena. The Great Danes, of course, have played there. Dwayne Killings, the new head basketball coach. Colleen Mullen, the women's basketball coach. Projects set to begin next month, so August 2022, not to conclude until November 2023. The first question, of course, you'd wonder is, okay, so where are they going to play? Well, if the season doesn't tip off till late October, early November, they might rush it as much as they can done then, put it on pause, and then finish it next summer. That seems to be the most likely scenario with no other details released from UAlbany. So if you're a Great Dane fan, even if you're a fan of upstate New York sports, you have to look at this and wonder how and what type of impact will this renovation have for the UAlbany athletic program? Because we've seen across New York State other programs upgrade their facilities. Syracuse at the Carrier Dome, things have changed. Binghamton's baseball field, I call Binghamton is upstate New York. Their baseball field is tremendous. You can go up and down. St. John Fisher, Hobart, those are Division III schools that have fantastic facilities. This is just a part of what it is. Now at the D1 level, yeah, those things matter. That alumni base coming back to games. Have it feel less like a high school gym and more like a Division I college basketball program. Now I just say that, and that's not to sting UAlbany in any way, but you look at St. Peter's, a program that just qualified for the Elite Eight. The story by Sports Illustrated, Albany's own Kevin Sweeney had noted that St. Peter's basketball program had less than 100 people as season ticket holders, and they were able to get to the Elite Eight. Can it really just flat out a new gym, a new arena, a new hospitality area improve the recruitment for UAlbany basketball athletes? I mean, the easy answer is yes, right? Like you're supposed to say if the facilities look better, then you're more likely to land the prospect. How often is that the deciding factor? It feels like 15 years ago, if you like the team's uniform, you might go there. That might be a small percentage of people. If you're a parent of a potential recruit and you look at where your kid could potentially play and you can go to home games, that stuff does matter. In the world of NIL and flights and endorsements and all that stuff, maybe that's the other ploy and play, however you want to phrase that too, of if you're going to come here, there's a lot more opportunities and we are committed to our athletic program getting better. That might be as simple as that. We've seen Casey Stadium get an improved facility. We've seen the lacrosse program continue to grow because of PLL and more. So, yeah, it's hard not to say that the UAlbany athletic program upgrading its facilities will hurt recruiting at all. I'm just kind of surprised it happened. I didn't know there was a push to upgrade Syracuse Arena. Didn't feel like it. When I first moved out here to Albany in 2015, it was constant construction with the Times Union Center, then MVP Arena, the Knickerbocker Arena, the Pepsi Center, whatever you want to call it. Constant construction. So I don't really have a baseline of what it was before because from 2015, it seems like to 2017, it was always under construction. But if you are a UAlbany basketball fan and you're going to go to a game in 2 years, or even if you're outside, if you're from Oswego or Ithaca or Watertown or wherever it may be, and you go to a game now, maybe that's what your feeling's going to be. Like how I felt when I first showed up to the Capital Region of, okay, this is a pretty cool arena, and that recruiting base all of a sudden gets a lot bigger for the future. By the time, again, we talk next week, will Donovan Mitchell be a New York Knick? That's the story that's floating around, and New York Knicks fans and New York sports fans are kind of updating their phone like, did they trade for Spider-Man yet? Did they trade for him yet? I've seen some of the stuff on social media of him like having Mitchell up on a building with like, we need you, Spider-Man, with the mask next to him. Donovan Mitchell's a really good player. Now, when he was coming out of Louisville, Rick Pitino told him he shouldn't go into the NBA draft. He's not ready. And so many other coaches, whether they get it right or wrong, we've heard that story before about a former coach telling a player to hold off a bit and improve their skill set. What's happened, though, the new trend is that the player says, I'll improve my skill set, no problem. I'll just get paid to do it now. We've seen some college players come back. It's a cool trend now that they get paid and use NIL, referenced again. But we've gone through this now with the New York Knicks. 10, 15, 20 years in a row of once they bring in the superstar, the things will change. From the days of hoping to get LeBron James 2, 3, 4 times, Carmelo Anthony and Amari Stoudemire did get the team the furthest it's been in the last decade. Jalen Brunson just signed a $100 million deal. So could the combination of Brunson and Mitchell make the Knicks better? Sure. Like Julius Randle got so much love because he helped the Knicks get to the playoffs, and there was such hype around Julius Randle that people talked about him being an MVP of the league. The Knicks stunk last season, and people already want to figure out how fast they could trade Randall. Welcome to New York. Welcome to the Big Apple. The talk of what Utah wanted for Donovan Mitchell involved multiple first-round draft picks. Obi Toppin, R.J. Barrett, I heard, was involved in one trade. Basically anything that was the future of the Knicks, they were ready to give up for Donovan Mitchell. The price tag was too high. Now, the Knicks are always going to be in the conversation of who could be that star player because New York is a true basketball town. I know the Yankees are in the mix. I know we talked a lot of baseball on this, but man, there was something different about the Garden in basketball. And even as a fan, I really haven't got the full taste of it. You had the Knicks run in 1999, the shortened season, but the Knicks were an 8 seed. You got the Knicks in the mid-90s with Patrick Ewing, but that's almost 30 years ago. So if that runs almost 30 years ago, that's a whole group of fans in their early to mid-20s who have never seen the Knicks be good, and the whole focus of the franchise could be on Donovan Mitchell. Do I think this time next week Donovan Mitchell will be a New York Knick? No. There's been a lot of time that passed through of whether or not they're going to make that trade or not. They've decided not to do it as of now, and I'd be shocked if the Knicks all of a sudden before the season tips off says, yeah, we need to do it. Just sounds like something good to talk about in mid-July to keep the New York press and Stephen A. Smith, who's got the bum shoulder right, out and active, and Mad Dog Russo and more. All right, this is the slowest week in sports of the year. We still got a half hour out of this one for you. Appreciate you listening. Talk again next week.